So the tap knife or pop knife or ox is a common weapon used in the Northeast United States by gangs. Just a simple box cutter. It's composed of three parts: the sheath or the sleeve, the body, and then the blade. For training, we're usually going to leave the blade out. Now, important note about carrying this: you want to have a slight bend in this component here. If it's perfectly straight, there's not going to be any friction, and this can slide out of the sheath. So when you put a little bit of a bend in it, it creates friction in the body that helps the blade stay out. Now, it's not going to lock out. The friction is going to come out and it'll make it want to stay out, but there's always a chance that it's going to slide back in. But with this arc in this component, it'll want to stay in an open position. So as a street weapon, this is used in a very simple manner. It's thin, it's concealable, you can draw it out of your pocket, be talking without anyone realizing you have it in your hand. It looks like you're not armed. When someone decides to engage with this weapon, they'll generally pop it off of their hip, deploying the edge and slashing the victim's face. So they'll come across the forehead to get blood running into the eyes, come across the eyes, or come straight down the face. The other way that you'll see this employed is they'll walk up behind the victim, tap the back of their shoulder as if they're getting their attention, but deploying the blade. When the person turns to see who's tapped their shoulder, they'll slash across the face here and run. Now, even though we're just using the corner of a razor blade here, because of the spongy nature of flesh, the way it'll compress when pressure is put on it, you can actually produce a much deeper cut than you would expect with a blade. The actual depth of the cut will run deeper than the blade you're working with because the flesh compresses. You can see here, cut straight through, one swipe. To start with, we're just going to work the basic deployments. So, keeping it here, bouncing it off the hip, coming horizontal across the forehead or the eyes. Coming straight down the face. Now, an option that you don't see very often in the street, but what can be effective for combative purposes, will be if an opponent's standing off to your side here, pop, go across the face here. We can also choose to attack the arteries. Here, we want to come down at an angle this way when we attack the artery. If you come straight across, there's a high risk that you're going to impact the shoulder or the jaw. You actually have a very thin line of clearance coming straight across here. If we come down, this V will funnel the shot into the artery. Same coming here. So these are your basic methods of entry. popping, slashing across the forehead, slashing across the eyes, slashing down the face, left carotid artery, right carotid artery, backhand slash. You're generally not going to be attacking areas where there's clothing. You're going to go for bare skin because it is a very small blade and it chips easily. It can get snagged on fabric. If you're trying to go through a leather jacket or a heavy garment, there's a good chance you're going to get caught on the garment or not cut all the way through it and do no damage at all. So you're looking for bare skin. Using the opponent's body to deploy, it could be here, sort of a defensive, more submissive looking position as he encroaches on me. Pop this off of his chest here. Go straight across the face. 1, 2. Now with practice, this deployment can be very fast. But you may want to augment this, striking the opponent's face as you do this. Cut out that little quarter beat and make this simultaneous. Or popping up here, exposing the artery, slashing here. Now, another entry we can use is the slap here. 1, 2. Make sure you're turning your hip into this. Pop it here, turn the hips back. For more of a distance, we can use the spear hand. It's important when you do the spear hand, curl the fingers slightly, so if you hit bone, they'll roll into a fist and not hyperextend the fingers. So here, shooting into the eye, here, as we deploy. Or cutting down the face. In close, I can use the headbutt as I deploy. 1, here. That's important when I do this one. Don't want to slash across the face because I can hit my own arm. So here, I would cut down the face here. Keep in mind as you're using this weapon that razors produce very thin wounds. A lot of times they won't open up on their own until the altercation is over. And unless you get a piece of the eye, the opponent might not actually realize they've been hit until after the altercation is over. So it's important to augment your attacks with the razor with strikes with your left hand. It serves 2 purposes. 1, it creates concussive impact that will slow them down as the blood starts to flow. But if we attack the wounds themselves, if I slash here and slap, that slap is going to help open up that wound and really get it bleeding, which will help shock set in faster as the opponents start to see their own blood flowing down their face and starts to realize they've been cut. So now we can start to put together some basic combinations. Starting with our off the hip entry here, we can attack the face. Palm. Attacking the eye, palm here. Coming to the throat. 1, 2, 3. That last one, I just reversed it. I went into the throat, face, eye. This time, popping, slash the throat, palm. And back across the face here. Hip, slash down the face, palm. Into the throat. So this time, we're going to use our palm with the deployment off the hip. Cut. Come back here, across the eye. Now, one thing that may happen, because as we said earlier, this blade doesn't lock open. If you misjudge your strike, or if the opponent moves in a way you don't anticipate, he may collapse the blade down just by inadvertently pushing it in. If this happens, we're going to need to cycle. So if I come in here, one, I miss my cut, this collapses, I'm just going to bring this back to my hip here, follow through. So anytime I sense the blade may have collapsed, cycle it back to my hip. So here, collapses, just bring it back to my hip and cutting again. So maybe I come in here, I go for my initial cut here, but he moves in here. I can throw in the palm as I do this, cutting in here. Can also, if I'm in close, just going to check here to impede any counter, keep him from overwhelming me. Use him to cycle it. Reopen the weapon here, cut. In close, here, collapses on me. Now I don't want him to overwhelm me, so I'm just going to check him here to impede any weapon he might have, stifle his forward motion. And at the same time I do this, popping this off of his shoulder here to redeploy the weapon. So it collapses, redeploying, attacking. Collapses. 1,